And I'm sorry, Hunter, you are not the victim of a witch hunt. President Trump is. And we've seen that. You didn't file tax returns for 3 years. You tried to get a sweetheart deal passed under the judge's nose, and we got caught. We know what's going on here, but don't you dare use our lines on us, because the only people that are treated differently are the Democrats. They are protected. Sure. They are clearly not treated the same, and I want to see their line be used against them. No one is above the law. Show me that.
Last week, there were quite a bit of developments in the world of Trump's legal concerns and his trials. And a lot of it was good news for Donald Trump. That's why if you get your news from the regular broadcast networks or CNN or MSNBC, you didn't get a whole lot of coverage. If you did, you had people wringing their hands and screaming that the country is about to be destroyed because Donald Trump is actually allowed due process in a court of law, especially given that he's running for president and is the Republican nominee right now. You'd think that he wouldn't have any due process, that if Democrats just want to throw him in jail, he would shut his mouth and let them throw him in jail. That's literally the coverage you got over there on MSNBC. We'll show you that in a second. But here is the president's lawyer, Alina Habba. She appeared on Judge Judy on Fox News Friday night, I believe it was, a special Hannity show that Judge Judy was. That's not Judge Judy. Did I get that wrong? That's not Judge Jeanine. Sorry. Although with Judge Judy, it would be a great show too. With Judge Jeanine, and here's what she had to say. And you're not going to see her. You would think she would be a good get. The president's lawyer, let's get her on the air. Nope, only one channel seems to want to book her right now. Maybe Newsmax now and again.
And Judge McAfee will rule on at a later date. And earlier today, one Democrat strategist had a message for Fulton County DA Fani Willis. Take a look at this.
Fani Willis, I think, has already made herself a character in this saga. She's got to bring it down and stay focused on doing the job of prosecuting this case. I wish she would stop doing interviews and really focus on just prosecute the case, and be very serious in the courtroom.
By the way, real fast, because we'll get back to the interview, but I mentioned, what you're seeing on CNN, MSNBC. Understand that person who was sort of spanking Fani Willis. Sorry about that imagery. Sort of scolding Fani Willis. Just focus, because she's got to get back to the job of prosecuting. What she's saying is, don't screw this up. We've got a Trump to throw in jail. We've got an election to steal. So stop with all the distractions, lady. Get back there and do your job. That's what she's saying. All right, so let's get on to Alina Habba.
Meanwhile, Hunter Biden's attorneys are asking for his tax charges to be dropped, a move that has sparked backlash from prosecutors and was reportedly met with skepticism from the judge. Here with reaction, Trump legal spokesperson Alina Habba. Alina, welcome. It has been a very interesting week. The argument this week, actually today in Fulton County before Judge McAfee, regarding the claim by the president's attorney and some of the co-defendants' attorneys that the essence of the indictment has to do more with the First Amendment and free speech than a crime and RICO. What say you?
Number one, you and I both know, Judge Jeanine, that we have only one RICO situation, and that's what's happening with the Merrick Garland Biden administration. Let's be honest about it. We've seen the White House logs. We've seen the proof. The only RICO is the coordination against Donald Trump. What they argued today was very simple. A president has a right to speak. A human being, an American, this country is based on the constitutional First Amendment rights to speech. He had that right, and he did so. He has also a right as the executive branch to question and provide election integrity. God knows our country needs that right now, Jeanine. I know you know it. I know it. The American people know it. So that's why we're looking at this from a serious standpoint of constitutional violations, not to mention all the frankly, the nonsense and the noise. It might be the only time I agree with CNN is when they say that Fani Willis has become a character in this.
Yes.
I mean, it's insane.
You know, Alina, when you think about it, the judge makes a decision to have her decide whether or not her boyfriend should go. But she's the one who brought the boyfriend in. She's the one who paid the boyfriend. She's the one who took the stand and said, no, I didn't have any relations until well into the relationship which was contrary to the testimony of others. But do you think that this judge is afraid of Fani Willis?
You know, I think that's a really good point. Honestly, I think that a lot of judges right now are afraid. If you're a Republican elected judge, you're afraid to look like you're too biased to Republicans. But by the way, if you're elected by a Democrat, if you're a Clinton appointed judge, you seem to not have a problem sanctioning us for bringing a case about Russia hoax against Hillary Clinton without even seeing me, meeting me, or hearing the case for 5 minutes. It's unbelievable. We play so safe, they play dirty. That is what I've seen over and over again. And I know you see it, I see it. The American people are starting to see it. If you have a question about it, look at the poll numbers. That's why he's doing so well.
Clearly. And what do you think of Hunter Biden claiming that his indictment should be dismissed when they literally, with the statute of limitations, got rid of the most incriminating years for taxes? And he says this is just a special prosecution that is unfair and unjust.
Yes, we know what that's called. That's called a witch hunt. And I'm sorry, Hunter, you are not the victim of a witch hunt. President Trump is. And we've seen that. You didn't file tax returns for 3 years. You tried to get a sweetheart deal passed under the judge's nose, and we got caught. We know what's going on here, but don't you dare use our lines on us, because the only people that are treated differently are the Democrats. They are protected. They are clearly not treated the same. And I want to see their line be used against them. No one is above the law. Show me that. You don't pay your taxes. You don't charge. 3 years you didn't file tax returns. No one's above the law, Hunter.
That's for.
We love it when Alina Habba takes a blowtorch to these trial cases and all of the double standards that we see in the legal cases. Alina Habba. I don't know why I get tongue-tied with this woman. It's a very strange phenomenon, but I always mess up that name. I want to go back to the very beginning of this, where she was asked specifically about the charges with regard to so-called election interference by Donald Trump. The case that's pending before the Supreme Court later this month, whether Donald Trump has immunity, presidential immunity, in the case of the speech that he gave on the ellipse the day of the January 6th incident, or for that matter, communicating with elected officials in Fulton County to get a legitimate count of the mail-in ballots and all of the ballots that took, a week to count down in Georgia. Understand something. There are two rights here that the president is exercising, and you can use this. This is the president's defense, and it's a legitimate defense. And frankly, it's the defense that you can use if you need to against your liberal brother-in-law or somebody trying to flame your Facebook page. Number one, the president can say whatever he wants. He's just like any other American citizen. He can make a speech. He can say whatever he wants. God knows the president we have right now mumbles and stutters his way through whatever blasphemous, ridiculous thing that he wants to say about celebrating Transgender Awareness Day on Easter, or telling that speech before Independence Hall soaked in a blood-coated red light while he screamed fascist, fascist at anybody who dares to oppose his political agenda. Fine. He can give that speech if he wants. It's not against the law. It's just odious and despicable, disgusting, and un-American. So, of course, the president can say whatever he wants, no matter who the president is. But number two, when you are sworn in as president of the United States, you swear to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It's right there in the Constitution. Excuse me, in the oath of office. They swear to protect and defend the Constitution. And if you are a sitting president and you, in your heart, truly believe, and based on the legal analysis and advice you're getting from lawyers, if they tell you that there are shenanigans going on here and the Electoral College count is warped in some way and fraudulent because of fraudulent ballots being counted and because of unorthodox methods of counting votes, and you truly believe that in your heart, not only can you intervene and discuss with the elected officials that are in charge of those elections methods to make the count proper, legal, and legitimate, but I would argue you have a responsibility as the president of the United States and the person who is in charge of the executive branch of government and the functions of our government, After swearing to protect and defend that Constitution on behalf of the American people, you have an obligation to do whatever you can to make sure that the vote count is done in a legal, proper way. And if you truly believe that in your heart, then yes, absolutely. Not only can you, but you should go down and try to get a legitimate count of the ballots. And that's what Donald Trump is saying in court he was doing. And I don't know how you can say he wasn't. Unless you're not on CNN and you're on, unless you're not on Fox News or on this program and you're actually on MSNBC. Because while the Fox News audience with Judge Jeanine was seeing that very reasonable and intelligent discussion of President Trump's legal situation this last week with all of the trials, over on MSNBC with Nicole Wallace, you saw this.
It's time to do something different. Like, we're not going to have this conversation again. I have come on the air with breaking news about requests for gag orders because of threats for judges and their kids more times than I could count today before I got ready. And Judge Ludig, I think it's time. I don't know who has to write the banners at the bottom of my show. I'm sorry in advance. But Donald Trump broke the rule of law. We should cover a broken judiciary in this country. Donald Trump managed to delay every federal criminal trial based on facts that he barely denies. Donald Trump managed to enlist the Supreme Court in a delayed process, the highest court in the land. Donald Trump brazenly and repeatedly attacks not just judges, and I've had the privilege of sitting across not just from you, Judge Ludig, but from Judge Esther Salas, whose son was assassinated by a crazy person. Judges don't have Secret Service protecting them. They don't even always have, her child answered the door. What are we going to do different? Because Donald Trump sure as hell isn't changing.
What is this hissy fit therapy session? For God's sake, she is a professional broadcast journalist in charge of a television show on a cable network owned by one of the major broadcast companies in this country. And she's throwing things on the set and near tears and proclaiming, by the way, for her audience, that Donald Trump broke the rule of law. Really? Maybe it's me. It's a quaint notion, but I still think a jury needs to determine that. Ms. Wallace? And her major frustration here is that Donald Trump has been able to delay the trials. Why doesn't he just sit back and let us put him in jail? What is wrong with this man? How dare he defend himself? How dare he appeal things to the Supreme Court? I'm sorry, ma'am, but when your prosecutor decides to use laws that have never been applied before against any American, let alone a former president and current nominee for president in this election cycle, and dare to claim that a president can't deliver a speech while he is still president on the day that they were ratifying the Electoral College on Capitol Hill, when you bring charges like that against a man for the first time in our nation's history, you sort of have to bake into the cake that there's going to be an appeals process. And yes, the Supreme Court is going to weigh in on it. You're the one who's broken precedent here. You're the one who's trying to rewrite the Constitution with this trial. And so we have to let it play out. He just keeps delaying things. No, the judicial process is delaying things because everybody's allowed to have a fair trial. You know, when they said that Sarah Palin, the New York Times, just pause for a minute here. The New York Times claimed that Sarah Palin was responsible for that shooting in Tucson, Arizona in 2010. In 2010, the New York Times claimed that Sarah Palin was responsible for the shooting that ended up debilitating Congresswoman Gabby Giffords. Now, Sarah Palin had nothing to do with it. It was some crazy lunatic who was off his meds who decided to shoot people, wanted to do a John Hinckley or a taxi driver situation and just shoot people, including this Congresswoman. But the New York Times said that it was Sarah Palin's fault. Sarah Palin sued for defamation. Do you know when she finally had her day in court? Last year. It took her over a dozen years to finally have her day in court in her defamation lawsuit against the New York Times. These people are bringing criminal charges against a former president and a current candidate for president. They just brought the charges in, November, I think. And they're really upset that here we are in April and he's not already convicted. What the hell is going on here? Give me something to throw. They're lunatics. They're absolute lunatics. And if all you get for your news and information is that channel, then you've become one of the lunatics too. I feel bad for you. I really do.